Okay, I think the shadow over here that the boat casts onto the shore is really important. So I'm just going to go back to this ultramarine transparent red oxide mixture and just get bluer and darker in here. Maybe a value number 2, something like that. A little bit darker. And of course, now it's bluer, and it's going to give us that nice crisp edge right there. And this is where we can see the mast, kind of just the reflection of the mast going off. Now, already a lot of the work is done because of how light this value is up here. The next thing is to start, of course, painting in the reflection of that boat. And this is where I just have to be so careful that I'm not, you can see this error right here because this comes down and then this goes out that way. You see that they're not aligned, and they should be. It should be just one continuous line because you're not going to have an angle on a reflection. So I have to just fix that. I'm going to cover it up a little bit. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to paint over it in a second anyway. But here we are, and just want to make sure that the reflection of the boat right in here lands right where it should. We are, because of our angle, seeing the underside of the boat in the reflection a little bit too. So it feels like a slightly different perspective of the boat, but it is, of course, right beneath. So getting ready to paint the boat, and I just want to refine the shapes on the boat a little bit. So this is my gold ochre transparent oxide red and white mixture, and just going to bring that right into the reflection. Okay, notice how much darker and grayer it is. That's just vital for that reflection. So we've got that laid in. I'm going to take my color of the water here, Viridian, cobalt, and white, and just start just refining away these shapes. I'm just going to use my brush here just as a plumb line. Make sure that reflection is lining up. And see another shape right in here. We can see the sky up through an opening in the sail cover, right? So that's going to get painted in a second as a hole through the sail cover. But again, just want to see this line up, want to see these value changes. This is how you paint a reflection. If you get these shapes lined up and these changes in color and value, it's really going to give you a very authentic look here. Okay, so here I've got just a little bit. This is my transparent oxide red and ultramarine mixture, and I'm just refining, and you can see it's a little bit cooler along the top there because just like the water's reflecting the sky, the cover is too. And now for a little dark shape in here to capture fold. Just think of this as the small shapes. We started with the big shapes and now some small shapes. This is a little transition in plane there. Transparent oxide red, ultramarine blue, and white. That's how I got that color. You see just a little form now. Okay, I'm going to take just the same reflecting color of the sky on the water, but I'm going to add more white and more gold ochre. So, not gold ochre, sorry, cobalt blue here. And I'm going to take and paint that cool right along the top of the sailboat cover. See that? And this is a trick that you can use to just show how the objects in your painting are connected to the sky. So there you go. Cool that off. and that rim of sky, and see how that now really corresponds to the sky reflecting down on the water. Take some more uh, cobalt and white, mix it together, still in that viridian mixture, so there's still a little bit of it. And I'm just going to use this to refine the drawing even more. So you can see how useful this mixture is. Just these crisp little shapes. Look look at the abstract shapes of the boat. Don't get caught up on feeling like you have to know exactly how the boat was built or anything like that. And just look at those shapes. I'm going to be correcting this along here too. Just bringing that blue back while it's on my brush and softening that edge. So remember, there's a little disturbance in the water. That's the reflection there. You look at the brown line above my brush, a little ways up. That above that line is the actual grass, but I've just painted through the reflection. So bringing a little bit more movement into the water there. And I'm going to take my number 12 flat, Master's Choice, and just get the glare out. Now you can see that a little bit better. Now I'm going to do an alignment check, and the critical thing, I've said it already, but we just want to make sure that these reflections are lining up perfectly. Um, Lining up perfectly up and down, or horizontally, if you will. It will elongate, but it's still going to be a mirror image from top to bottom, from the thing down. So just took some transparent oxide red and ultramarine and put that in there. And I'm just refining that bow with a little of my gold ochre and uh, transparent oxide red mixture. That's my gold ochre transparent oxide red and white mixture. Just refining that little reflection. And I think the next step, just asking what bothers me most as I look at this boat, what bothers me most, I think the next step is just going to be to bring in a little bit more clarity of the reflection of the sail cover. So that's still all just undertone down there. So that's going to be my gold ochre and transparent oxide red and white mixture. Just, there you go, just little fluid strokes, right? I'm trying to be direct and basic with these strokes. I love that feel of a mosaic of impressionistic brushwork. You put these in the right place enough and it just builds a feeling of realism, but it's still painterly and full of mark making. So I've got my number 2 flat and I'm just placing these shapes, and again, checking that alignment. Always have to be doing it, constantly checking that alignment. That's just a slightly more shadowy underside of those shapes in there. Looking up, it's slightly darker. Wouldn't want it to be the exact same value. Seeing how that works together. Of course, we wouldn't see the blue because that's on the top of that sail cover. We wouldn't see it reflected into the bottom. But here we go, just a little bit of that bismuth and ultramarine green from before. Nice little connection to the greens of the landscape, and of course it's in the source too. If you look closely, the line below the hull is green, so just a fresh little green in the middle of all those warms. Okay, now I'm just going to make sure that we've got this lining up here. Take some of that gold ochre, transparent oxide red and white, and just elongate that a little bit. You see it was just a little bit short, and it is still some correction to do in those shapes. It can't be so painterly that it doesn't make sense. I'm going to take some blue and just carve away at that. Remember, we're looking at the underside of the boat in its reflection, but it still has to line up. Here we go. Little stroke. Okay, and I think the next thing that I want to see is just the trim here. So this is gold ochre, transparent oxide red, and white again, but just a little bit more of the gold ochre and transparent oxide red. And you can see just that very subtle little line of trim to reflect the trim in the boat above. Those little touches just help our mind's eye understand what we're seeing here. Going to modify this a little bit. It's a little too extreme. Just softening that out with my gold ochre, transparent oxide red and white in there. So that to me now really feels round. I can feel the roundness. Take this is transparent oxide red and ultramarine blue mixture. There's a little white in here. This is my liner brush. I'm just going to start giving these little shadows. And as I do it, I'm going to try to work from top to bottom here. These little drawing strokes. This is the shadow side, crisp little shadow edge here. And I'm just going to make sure that as I do it up here, I'm really bringing it down and showing the same in the reflection. So here, gold ochre and pyrrole and white. This is just a warmer orange, transparent oxide red, and no, this isn't pyrrole again. This is transparent oxide red and white. Sorry about that. And this is just that warmer color on the mast coming up here, crisp little shadow. There we go. Looks right. Okay. This is the mud behind transparent oxide red, ultramarine. Lean it towards the ultramarine so that it's a cool gray. And I'm just going to use this precise little brush to just correct some of these shapes in here. This is something I love about this approach to painting. I'm asking what bothers me most, and yeah, I'm just going to use any tool that I need. And so we have these nice big brush strokes, but now I can use this fine little brush, and I'm just modifying these shapes so that they're right. One thing that I think is helpful to point out here, just as I paint these little shapes in, is that just for painting to look impressionistic doesn't mean that you need to constantly use a big brush or really juicy strokes. You can use a whole myriad of approach here in your technique and how you're putting the paint on. You just leave enough of the big marks. There's a little trim on the other side in shadow, transparent oxide red and ultramarine. And I'm just going to make sure it's lining up from top to bottom here in this reflection. Okay, but yes, so the thing is, with painterliness, a lot of times people will see a painterly painting, like it has a lot of great big beautiful marks in it. Think Edgar Payne. He's someone I've just shown you here in the master video. But if you look closely, that's not how the whole painting is painted. These big juicy strokes are decorative and they're supported by all this subtlety. So if you love painterly impressionistic paintings, just know that there are a lot of ways to approach that look in a painting, and it's not like you just want to use a great big brush the whole time. You do see those strokes, but those are kind of the last strokes you see. Okay, I'm going to bring in the shadow here. Got a crisp little fold underneath, and we've already handled this in the reflection right down here. Do you remember that? Just make sure it's in the right spot here. A little shadow in there too. This is where I'd recommend just everything you do in the actual sailboat, just carry it down to the the reflection. Just make sure you're aligning top to bottom all the way through here. So there's that space. We can see the shore behind, and then in the reflection, we can see up through to the sky through that hole. That's what we're seeing in the reflection. See how they align. I'm going to keep going with my liner brush here and that transparent oxide red gold ochre white mixture, and just see this alignment. Gonna just carry it straight down. Get that mast happening directly below. I'm correcting a crooked reflection here too. So make this right. Got a little bit of a line across the reflection there. This is my liner brush from Polar Flow. I think I mentioned that already. It comes in that set, and I just love it. It's such a precise drawing tool here for these kind of fussy things. There's the shadow on the mast or the sail cover. See how that lines up? I'm just going to drag that gold ochre transparent oxide red mixture straight down. You see how I'm using my pinky to just help guide a straight line? You can't do this obviously in the center of the painting, but when you're at the edge, look like this, just a little bit of help here, getting that line straight, holding my hand still. There we go. So that's even with the edge, and I'm just checking that. I'm gonna make sure that that lines up top to bottom, and just look at how well this reflection is starting to read. And it's because of the alignment, it's because of the values, it's because of the colors. You can really start to see that correspondence back and forth. Okay, just drawing a little line on the edge of that sandbar. So it makes sense that that's a sandbar and not the reflection of the boat. And I'm dragging some gold ochre, transparent oxide red and white here, just, and the irregular way that went on actually mimics the sort of movement in the water. Make it a little softer at the bottom too. There we go. Again, that was gold ochre, transparent oxide red, and white. And so is this. Just going to correct that mast a little bit here. This part where you just kind of hold your breath. Make that line as straight as you can. There we go. It's an impressionistic straight. These are sort of things where it's not like the wrong thing to do to use a ruler or a T-square sometimes with these really, really straight edges, but all natural today. Here we go. I'm going to put in the shadow too. So this is that darker transparent oxide red and gold ochre mixture. Remember, every single mixture so far is 2 colors plus white except for a couple of the greens. There we go. There's that correspondence top to bottom. Now I'm going to bring in a palette knife with just a little of that gold ochre white and transparent oxide red on the edge and just drag it straight down through. Get a fine line after those guy wires or whatever they're called on a boat. Sorry if that's not what they're called, but it's what's in the picture here. And there's another one right in here. I'm going to push up. See that? And it's going to actually pull a little of the white paint out of the boat and make a nice little indication of a line. Some impressionistic rigging here. Okay, the same. There's another one. The front. Pushing. There we go. It's really subtle. Just a little etch of a line gives that idea of a really, really fine line at a different distance. I'm just going to get the main one in the reflection. You see how I lined it up first, and I'm actually scraping the paint out with the tip of the palette knife there. Back to the tone, which is transparent oxide red, and there we go. Okay, that's the reflection.